Welcome everyone to Africam4Good, brought to you by explore.org. Thank you for joining us today. We will be discussing one of Africa's gentle giants, elephants. Today I'm joined by the founder of Herd, Adine Roode. It's great to have her on the show today to discuss the amazing work that Herd have been doing with elephants and elephant conservation here in Africa. Welcome, Adine. How are you?
Thank you, Russell. No, all good, thank you, and thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Again, another one of my favorite animals to chat about. Always so fun to watch, and obviously we're quite fortunate to get quite a lot of good elephant sightings on the cameras. But as we start all of our Africam4Good shows, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, actually looking after elephants, but I'm an accountant from background, so everyone always asks me, you know, did you study in this direction? No, I haven't. Okay, so I've been involved since a little girl in quite a lot of different conservation aspects. I grew up with my mother looking, you know, after cheetah and rhinos. So rhinos were actually my passion. Because I knew a lot about them. I spent weekends when I was a young girl looking after baby rhinos that were sick. And then in 1997 we actually received an orphaned elephant, and that was kind of my first introduction with at that stage I also had a little baby boy, so my own child. So between the two, I was more involved in my son, but in the background with Jabulani. And that kind of, stirred a little bit about my elephant background experience. So that is actually, kind of how I wouldn't say grew up,
It's how it all started. Well, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I certainly never had a little orphaned elephant as a youngster, or even in my adulthood, but I do have some children, and I know that can be difficult to balance, so that must have been really interesting at the time. About Herd itself, tell us a little bit about the history of Herd and how that came to be.
Actually, that's quite I would say an interesting topic, because what happened then, after Jabulani, there were some elephants up in Zimbabwe that, with the war veterans that invaded the land and the farms, and these elephants, were actually out to be culled as well. So the farmer contacted my mother, and typically female, she said, let's take them in, and that was in 2002. So took two trucks up, brought them down to us, and the good news was that they accepted Jabulani. That was also just after we spent a lot of time trying to reintegrate Jabulani on the reserve with the wild elephant herd. But because he wasn't, part of their family, and he was also a little bit cocky at that stage, it became just too dangerous for him. So we had to stop that process. And the good thing here was, when those elephants from Zimbabwe arrived, they were all individual elephants coming from different culling experiences and backgrounds, but they accepted Jabulani. And he had basically an instant family. So shortly after that, my dad passed away. And, unfortunately, he was always kind of the saving grace for my mum's, project. And at that stage, we had to look at how are we going to generate income. And we built a lodge. So that was the kind of the business idea around that, in order, to have sustainable funds to look after these elephants, because you can just imagine, how much it cost. But over the years, it was really a journey from once they arrived and until what we're doing now with them. Things really changed. As I mentioned earlier, they were individual elephants when they arrived. But while they were here, actually our matriarch Tokwe, she eloped one night, came back, and 2 years later we had our first baby that was born in the herd. But that actually really changed the dynamics and the social structure, because all of a sudden they became a family. And years after that, we started, people asking us to assist with orphans that came from human-animal conflict backgrounds, and accepting them. I actually saw that that it helps you so much to have those big elephants that already had babies. They know how to deal with these orphans, and taking them in and accepting them. And there was an increase in demand of people asking to assist in elephant orphans, and looking at the poaching up in Africa, and also seeing where we are in poaching. We still have I want to say maybe enough elephants in South Africa, but when is enough enough? We are sitting with habitat issues. Populations of humans are increasing, so it's not always that the population of elephants are there's too many elephants. It's more about that our habitat is decreasing for our wildlife. And in that regard, because you're sitting with animal human conflict, what do you do with those babies that come in? So it was about 8 years ago that I started talking to people in how can we go about, because with rhinos, it's very easy. I mean, you can have a recipe for milk, you can reintegrate them into systems. You've got rhino orphanages all over South Africa. And you know what? It's such a good thing to have all the rhino orphanages, because we're spreading our risks. However, looking at your elephant, you're looking at an unbelievable, interesting, but also a complicated social structure where your hierarchy are playing a major role. So having just one elephant orphan, here and another one in another place, it's not healthy, not for the elephant, and also in the long run, because elephant lifespan is 60 years. Once you take them in, you've got that responsibility to look after that elephant for 60 years. And I have to say that is a huge responsibility. So even what I try to do in my elephant management plan is that can be sustainable. Because every elephant that I take in now, they're going to outlive me. But I took on that responsibility. And in the future, they must have like a pension fund, if I want to say that, but they have to have, a plan that they will be taken care of in the future. So I started talking to a lot of elephant knowledgeable people, and also business people, to get different ideas on how to tackle this. People looked at me and said, "Gee whiz, you're crazy." But there's definitely a method behind the madness. And they started assisting me, and we developed then a whole plan with objectives. When do you accept baby orphans? You just can't take in everyone. But you also need to then work regarding your permit systems in order to do that, to the greater good of elephant conservation. It's not that I'm going to save the elephant species. That's not what I'm doing. But these elephants need to contribute towards elephant conservation, in the long run. So that was actually, just how, to the idea. In order to assist those elephant orphans that come in, they can flow directly into an elephant family that accepts them. And we can reduce your human interaction with those elephants, in order also to look at the future, that you are able to reintegrate them, and you don't have that strong human elephant bond. So that's kind of how herd came to be.
Wow, well, that's quite a story. I mean, it sounds extremely complicated, and as you say, quite difficult to manage, I imagine, in all aspects of it. just to take us through it, if let's say somebody has an orphaned elephant that they have asked you to help and step in, I mean, how difficult is it to help rescue and rehabilitate an elephant?
Russell, it is really very complicated. As I mentioned before, with a rhino orphan, there's basics. You can really have, for example, a milk recipe, and you'll be successful. There's certain things that you need to look out for, like ulcers. However, with your elephant, the milk production over your lactation period of an elephant mother changes the whole time. So over the first 5 months, it is a huge change. And then from your 5 months to your 18 months, it's also, quite, but totally towards a different angle that it changes. And then from your about your 18 months until you only wean them at 4 years, that is just how can I say, a topic on its own. So that's the one thing that's extremely difficult. Then once they come in, those elephant orphans are traumatized. They've been in a snare, so they've got also a wound that you need to treat. And secondly, as I mentioned, they're traumatized. They just lost their family. They might have seen something. So emotionally, they're out there. They're stressed. You need to kind of step in, calm down, but you can't also, spend all the time with them, and then they get so used to just a person. So you have to have a good, I'm going to say, a structure of staff to assist, and I can say, not assist, but that you can rotate also for staff that needs to go on leave. Otherwise, if that baby is getting so attached to one or two persons, they can also die. So that's more, once again, also trauma. And then you're also sitting with a pancreatitis, that because they have not eaten for quite a bit of time, they're dehydrated. But all of a sudden they get food in, and so your insulin is totally. I don't want to say dear mekaar, but it's just
all over the
everything
show.
is haywire.
Yeah.
Yes, so it is very complicated. There's so many things that you need to take into account. For example, at what lactation level are they? Which milk do you start them on? And to be honest, I don't even have all those answers. I go on my experience reading the elephant, and going from there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
in short,
as you said, there's so many things to consider.
Yeah. No, so it is extremely difficult.
Okay. Well, so now you've got the elephants that you've gone through all these difficult, as you say, various structures and processes that you have to do to get them integrated into the herd, and now they're doing pretty well. Here's a tricky question for you. Do you have a favorite elephant at herd? And if so, why?
I don't want to say I've got a favorite. I think you've got different relationships with, every elephant. I think it's the same with your children. You don't have a favorite child, but there's certain things that, one child you can play, for example, tennis with. The other child you can go on a coffee date, and that's kind of how, I see the elephant side is each one has something specific that is so interesting and so unique. And that's kind of, building your relationship around that.
Okay, cool. That was a very political answer. I appreciate that.
No, but you know what? As I said, if you, I always say you shouldn't hang a little sign around somebody's neck, because then you actually, if you say that person is like that, that's the only thing you see. And we all just kind of special.
A little different. Yeah, I like that. So, Adine, I'm looking at
Listen,
that lovely picture
yeah.
behind you. Looking at that lovely picture behind you, and I know many people will want to know who is Lami, and can you tell us, what is special about Lami?
Yeah. So Lami is a sheep, and she's a surrogate mother. We actually got her in with the rhinos that we hand raised. And why we use a sheep is that as the little ones come in and you're unable to introduce them to the herd immediately, because of their trauma, you need to get them on bottles, you have to treat their wounds. That sheep plays a major role in assisting you, for example, once they go out in on the grass, to feed, because you as a human can't eat grass, but they copy that sheep, and that surrogate mother plays really a tremendous role. So Lami, I always say, her path to heaven is paved. She is so adorable. She's accepting all of the rhinos, the orphans. She's looking after them as and that's, one, she's a peri sheep, and that's one of their characters. It's like they're just unbelievable.
Well, what a cool story. I'm sure many people will be interested to see that really does work well, that surrogate mother system. So thank you for telling us about Lami. Here's another difficult one, which I'm sure you have many of them, but what has been one of your most memorable experiences you've had with the elephants at herd?
I think one, that can definitely stand out, and it's not one, that it's just that day. It happens quite frequently whenever I haven't been with the herd for quite a time, and I go into the bush with them. How the females, and they kind of start to rumble. They talk to each other, and they will all come and surround you. It is such a humbling experience, because these huge elephants, coming towards you, and you're so small, they can do anything to you. However, they come to you, and you're part of their family. They've accepted you, and they're so glad to you. They sniff you, and it's just, as I said, it's humbling. It's really humbling, because to have those over 4-ton elephant trusting you and respecting you is just amazing.
Oh, that must be really special. I have to admit, I did with an elephant project up in Botswana go for a walk with a couple of orphaned elephants who had now become big adults, and it was so special, like you say, out in the wild with them like that. And yeah, I think most people will agree that rumbling sound of elephant is one of the most incredible sounds and feelings to be around. So that must have been really, really cool, or still cool every time you do it. So the next one we do have to ask as well, of course, is what is one of the biggest challenges facing elephant conservation in your opinion?
I think the biggest challenge is that everyone looks at elephant conservation from different views. We all, want to achieve the same thing. However, one model doesn't work for every, I want to say, organization or opinion, or person or reserve or area. What works, for example, in elephant conservation for the Kruger, who have massive areas, it's not the same as for a private reserve. But it's not that one is wrong, and you sometimes miss those points to actually see the other person's view, and accepting that he's sitting with other problems and other criteria. But at the end of the day, you all want to achieve the same goal. And I think the other thing is like, I think, and that's maybe, human, is that you don't see eye to eye. However, you're actually working towards the same goal. And sometimes you just need to accept, or, to understand that person and stand in these shoes, to actually work together.
Yeah. Yeah, easily one of the most difficult things is getting people going in the same direction. I think we can all agree on that. What are your hopes for the future regarding herd, and the elephants at Jabulani?
I think one of the biggest hopes is that once we're in that position to start reintegrating the elephants into other areas, and that's successful, and that the elephants will be doing well, and that everything just worked out for them, because we've put in so many hours and so much. And as I said, I'm not sure how they're going to work, because you're sitting with a family herd which is growing, but our area is not expanding. So I'm also going to run out of space in order in my capabilities, what I can do. And it will be, for the greater good to reintegrate some of the elephants. But who do you choose? That's going to be quite difficult. And I think that would be still a lot of research and hours to put in order to get that best, how can I say, answer in who will be reintegrated first into other areas. And if that's successful, and it can grow and can work as it can work on paper, that can practical work as well.
Yeah, well, we wish you nothing but the best when the time does come, and I know we'll all be watching closely. To our viewers out there, what would your message be to those watching in terms of elephants and their conservation? What would you like to say to them?
I think for everyone, a lot of people ask, they like to volunteer, or they would like to assist and help, but they don't know how. But, they don't have to just be hands-on to assist, with elephant conservation, but by spreading the word, watching, YouTube, follow, not only herd, but also other elephant organizations. The more, that's kind of education as well. We're not only educating our local community, but also international, everyone, because these elephants are our natural capital of South Africa and of Africa. And it does help just to spread the word through the world.
Yeah, hopefully we're doing a little bit of that now, and people will as you say, want to help and get involved from all over different parts of the world. And on that last note, for herd itself, can the viewers actually visit herd and or help out? How can they help you guys out in particular?
Okay, so basically what we do have is the viewers are able to visit us. We do have the lodge, Jabulani, where they can stay, and it's unbelievable, to see the elephants out in the wild, from their vehicle though, and then they can see the whole herd during middle of the day, where the elephants will swim and browse. And if that's not possible, we do have a morning experience where people can come and visit. They will meet 3 of our ambassador bulls. We only have the ambassador bulls, where people can get close to them, as the females and the females and the cows need to stay behind with all the babies. So there's unfortunately no interaction allowed with the little babies, just for the long-term sake, but also to watch our YouTube videos, share that, follow us on our social media platforms, Instagrams and Facebook. That is, kind of a huge help. And then also we do have foster programs. So if you don't know what to give to somebody, foster an elephant, you can, we've got 16 that you can foster, give that as a present. And so that's all that I can do.
Lovely. Well, that's a lot. So I think people will be very excited about that. Thank you very much, Adine, and thank you for chatting to us today. It's been great having you with us, and all the best for your continued work at Herd. And we'll think of you guys every time we get some of these iconic pachyderms coming onto the cameras. And hopefully next time I'm out there in the area, I can pop in and say hello at Jabulani. That would be wonderful.
Yes, please. And thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And thank you all once again for watching the show. Please join us again next week for Africam4Good, brought to you by explore.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay informed for any of our upcoming shows. But for now, it's cheers from all of us.
Go. Slim meisje. Het is hij.